Welcome back to State of the FBS. I know it's been a little bit of a break since the last upload, had some family stuff going on, but we are back and it's time to get into college football once again. Week 4 just wrapped up, another very entertaining week of college football. A lot of really good games this week, a lot of interesting storylines from the past week, and I think it's only right if we start with probably the most controversial game of the weekend in Auburn at Oklahoma. This is a game that had a call on it that the SEC officiating crew had to issue a statement over, which it takes a lot to get the SEC to acknowledge something like that about their refs. If you haven't seen, what happened was Oklahoma had a receiver go towards the sideline like he was going to be subbed off, and then Oklahoma kept the player on the field. Isaiah Sategna outran the coverage, was uncovered because the Auburn defense thought he was being subbed off, scored a touchdown, and that was on a play that, according to the SEC officiating office and the conference itself, should not have counted. There were also a lot of other missed calls in this game on both sides. I think the refs were not just bad, they were inconsistently bad. It wasn't like the things were being called the same way all game long. There were issues on both sides, some inconsistencies on what a catch was, a referee running out of the way of a play that missed a huge pass interference penalty right behind him. It was just a disaster, and Auburn ended up losing this game 24-17, and I know you lose a game by one touchdown in a game where your opponent had a touchdown that the referees have apologized for. I know that stings, but however, this is not, I think, a game you can just say, oh, the refs stole a game from us, as much as you might want to say something like that. And I know me as an Auburn student, it's something I definitely felt like I wanted to say on Saturday. But going back and watching this game, the Auburn offensive line really struggled. You give up a program record, single game record for Oklahoma, 10 sacks against the Sooners. You can't be doing that. Way too many false start penalties, procedural penalties, a lot of holding early in the game that kind of stopped being called down the stretch. And then Jackson Arnold in the pocket, really just doing his best statue impression on a lot of plays for some reason. The internal clock wasn't there. You'd like to see him kind of break out of the pocket and run more, because you saw that he can be good at that through the first 3 games of the season. I know OU did a good job of keeping him hemmed in. They will know about his running ability better than anyone, but still, I would have liked to see Arnold try to at least improvise some a little bit more than he did. End of the day, 21 of 32 for 220 and a touchdown. That touchdown going to Cam Coleman on a goal line fade. Coleman was pretty much unstoppable in this game, and you look at the stat line, you see 3 for 88 and 3 for 88 and a touchdown, and you think that's not exactly unstoppable by modern receiver standards. But there were a lot of plays where Coleman was behind the defense, was wide open and beaten his coverage, and Arnold tried to find him down the field, and either Coleman caught it through contact or it was underthrown. One was overthrown in the end zone. It would have been an easy touchdown. Coleman absolutely cooked the OU DB on the outside. And just for fun, I went back and watched this game and pulled up every single rep that Coleman had the defender beat and Jackson Arnold targeted him. If those throws had hit Cam Coleman in stride, he would have been looking at a day of 5 catches for 287 yards and 5 touchdowns. And I know hypotheticals don't win you football games, but that's got to sting to look back on. I think for Auburn, this was a very winnable game that unfortunately you just shot yourself in the foot too many times. The defense played great for the vast majority of this game, just not enough consistency on the offensive side of the ball. You hope that gets worked out. I know it's still fairly new for a lot of these guys coming in, a lot of transfers, but overall, I've been encouraged from what I've seen from the Tigers so far this season. As for Oklahoma, John Mateer continued to play incredibly well so far this season. 24 of 36, 271, touchdown, added a touchdown rushing as well. He is the OU offense. They couldn't run the ball outside of him really at all, and receivers didn't get a ton of space a lot of the time. Mateer was playing well, and I think that he is one of the better quarterbacks in college football so far this season. There's a reason he's the Heisman frontrunner right now. I think he's playing exceptionally well. I wouldn't say that he's been the most impressive quarterback in the country to me so far, but he's definitely in that top 3 to top 5. I just don't know that I would give a clear-cut number 1 at this point. But he's definitely been outstanding for the Sooners. I thought he was a great transfer. I actually really wanted him to come to Auburn, but ended up going to Oklahoma to replace the outgoing Jackson Arnold, and I think Oklahoma got a really good one in Mateer. He's incredible, and this game, I think, is 2 really good teams going at it at Oklahoma, and OU comes out on top. Good game from the Sooners. I think they played incredibly well and deserved the win despite the officiating disaster class. Now, in another ranked matchup that was nowhere near as close, Indiana taking on Illinois. Number 19 Indiana hosting number 9 Illinois, and Indiana will go on to win this game 63-10. Fernando Mendoza absolutely diced up the Illini, 21 of 23, 267, and 5 touchdowns. Curt Cignetti showing no mercy in this one once again. And then the Indiana rushing attack was pretty good too. Kobe Martin, 12 for 107, 2 touchdowns, and Kalen Black had a touchdown as well, 89 rushing yards. So very talented Indiana running back room, I think, as well. You're seeing more from them than maybe you would have necessarily expected. But Fernando Mendoza continues to play incredibly well. This is a guy that's making NFL throws at the college level. I think that's something that is always incredibly valuable. You're not always going to find those guys. You saw it on tape last year at Cal. It's just, how does he adjust to the new system? And so far, the answer is pretty incredibly well. The Indiana defense also played very solid in this one. 7 sacks of Luke Altmaier. The Illinois offensive line looked overwhelmed and outmatched. And I know this is a team that a lot of people were high on coming into the year. They played very well against Duke last week, but just a different level of competition this week with Indiana. And I know people are saying, well, is Indiana going to be nearly as good as they were last year? They weren't even that great. They lost in the playoff to a national champion runner-up, and this year I think they've only improved. You upgrade at quarterback with Fernando Mendoza. I would take him a million times out of a million over Curtis Rourke. Elijah Surratt continues to develop. It's just a very talented team, and you know Curt Cignetti's a good coach. I think he has this Hoosiers team firing on all cylinders. I like the way they're playing in the defensive line. They're very gap sound so far. You're not seeing a lot of big plays against them. And then on the offensive side, just methodical and effective. And those two things combined, I think, are really going to help them out down the stretch. They have to play at Oregon. They have to play at Penn State. Those are two very difficult games, especially now with how Dante Moore is playing for Oregon. The Ducks look incredibly dangerous. I think I'd take Indiana to win at Penn State right now. I like Fernando Mendoza over Drew Aller, I think, in a quarterback duel, and I think the defense could at least hang enough to keep them in that. Oregon, I'm less sure. I think that team just has so much talent in the trenches, and then the secondary is very good for the Ducks. I think that could maybe halt Indiana a little bit more, but I think they'll at least be competitive in both games, so I'm very excited to see what they do the rest of the way this season. And as for Illinois, you lose by 53. I don't care what you were ranked before. You're not ranked anymore. I know what the AP says. I disagree. I think it's ridiculous that a team can lose by 53 and go out and stay ranked the next week. Just completely ridiculous. You should not be able to keep your ranking if you do that. And the Illinois hype train is officially derailed and lying next to the tracks, I think, at this point. But still, Luke Altmaier is a solid player. I think they'll continue to win games, just they're not going to be a top 25 team this year. Maybe 7-5, 8-4 the rest of the way, depending on how some of these close games go with these kind of mediocre Big Ten teams. But overall, Illinois, I think, as expected, not living up to a number 9 national ranking. Next up, the nightcap game on ABC, Miami hosting Florida. And this is a Florida team that came in reeling on offense after DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions against LSU the previous week. They lost 20-10 in Death Valley, even though Lagway threw a pick 6. It was a very winnable game for Florida. This felt like a winnable game for a moment after the Cormani McClain interception, but let's be real, I don't think Florida was ever doing anything in this one. They only had one drive this entire game that they had multiple first downs on. It was inexcusably bad. They were 0 for 13 on third down against Miami in this one. Just, you can't do that and expect to win football games. Billy Napier continues to be inept on the offensive play calling sheet. Look at Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Missouri was kind of overwhelmed. He was still trying to call plays, finally swallowed his pride, brought in an OC, and since then Missouri is 25-5. Whereas for Florida, Napier refuses to hire an OC, and now you have supposedly generational prospects in DJ Lagway, although he really hasn't shown it this year, going 12 of 23 for 61 yards, while your offense continues to be unable to move the ball because it's the same 6 plays recycled over and over. It's coaching malpractice, and Florida should be embarrassed to be continuing to employ Billy Napier at this point, especially after you fired Dan Mullen for a record that was about 15 games better than Napier is right now. So I think it's just inexcusable. You have to be better, especially with how well this defense is playing. I would say this is a top 5 defense in the country right now on this Florida team. They've only allowed 5 touchdowns so far this season, and they're 1-3. And I think you got a feel for them in that way. They allowed 18 points to a very good USF attack. They only allowed 13 points to LSU. Again, the pick 6 was how they got to 20. And then with about 3 minutes to play against Miami, they'd allowed only 19. And then Miami scores a late touchdown when the game was already over at that point. So you can't ask much more of the Florida defense than what they're giving you right now. They're playing incredible. They're playing out of their mind, and they're just not getting rewarded for it because the offense is addicted to eating glue. It's a terrible situation for the Gators right now, and it's not going to get any better unless a head coaching change is made. It's just not, and I think I might make a just video on the state of the program down in Gainesville anyway right now, just have that be its own thing, because there's a whole mess going on down there. But as for Miami, this team is legit. Carson Beck, I think, struggled a little bit, 17 of 30, 160 a pick. The reads weren't always the best, had a couple drops in there too, kind of felt like deja vu to last year's Georgia team with some of the drops, but this Miami run game is physical. The offensive line is a wrecking crew. This is a true Mario Cristobal team. Mark Fletcher, 24 for 116 and a touchdown. Shamar Brown, 16 for 80, 2 touchdowns. Well-oiled machine on the ground attack for the Hurricanes. And then on defense, just some freaks. Ruben Bain, I think, is going to be a top 10 pick in the draft if he keeps playing this way. Dude has ridiculous bend off the edge, speed, power, can cut back inside, has a pass rush plan. He's not just trying to out-athlete everyone. And they have some more freak athletes that can come off the edge. This Miami team in the trenches is probably one of the best teams in the country right now, and I would almost be willing to rank them number one. I would still have Ohio State there now, but Miami's knocking on the door. Hurricanes look incredibly impressive so far this season. I would buy Miami stock if you were considering which team to maybe pick for a national champion this season. Miami looks legit. The U may indeed be back. But Florida, absolute disaster, falls to 1-3 for the first time since 1986. Now to the big noon kickoff game over in Big 12 country. Number 17, Texas Tech, and number 16, Utah. Two of the better edge rushers in the country for Texas Tech, David Bailey and Romello Height, going up against a stout Utah offensive line led by Spencer Fano. And what happened was Texas Tech obliterated them. It was 37-10. Texas Tech controlled the entire game. Baron Morton went down with injury in this one. It does look positive for him. He should be able to be back after the bye week, according to sources around Texas Tech after the initial update. Morton was 12 of 19, threw for 142, did throw 2 picks. Wasn't a great day for him, but his backup came in and looked very good. And kind of, I think, is raising the question, okay, even if Morton is healthy, who do we play now for Texas Tech? Because Will Hammond came in and was 13 of 16 for 169 and 2 touchdowns, added 61 rushing yards as well. He looked very solid. And I like Baron Morton. I think he's a good player. I had him fairly high on my Big 12 quarterback rankings to start the year. I believe he was either just in or just out of the top 5. Not sure which side of that he was on. But either way, Will Hammond looked great. And I don't think that's a guy you can afford to keep off the field if you're Texas Tech, especially with how good this defense is. I mentioned Bailey and Height already. They are problems for opposing teams off the edge. This is the best edge duo that I can remember at Texas Tech in the time that I've been watching Red Raider football, which is about, I would say, 10 years at this point. I've actually watched Texas Tech. So at least in those 10 years, the best edge rush duo by far that they've had out there in Lubbock. This team is incredibly talented. Cameron Dickey also had a very good day for the Red Raiders, 13 for 67, 2 touchdowns. And overall, I think this is really proving a point. All season it was, okay, you put all the money into this team. You're really trying to do everything you can out there. Is it going to pay off? And I think so far it is. They're playing really good football. It's a talented Utah team. It's hard to win in Utah. Kyle Whittingham's a very good coach, and they went in there and made it look pretty easy. They had Devin Dampier struggling, 25 of 38, 162, 2 interceptions. You can't win doing that, and Utah proved it. I think that this is huge for the Big 12. Texas Tech now right there firmly in the front-runner conversation with Arizona State, Iowa State, and TCU. I would say Baylor is knocking on the door just because of Sawyer Robertson, but I think they've already lost. Well, only one conference loss, I think. One conference loss for Baylor. So still in the hunt for the Big 12, but they're going to need some help. There's a lot of good teams in the Big 12 this year. I think that conference is definitely being slept on. But for Texas Tech, love these two edge rushers. They're able to put teams in conflict. If you get one-dimensional, you're dead versus the Red Raiders this season. They're playing incredibly solid football right now. Tune into Texas Tech if you haven't yet this season. I promise you will not have a bad time. They're very entertaining. Next up, Michigan. This is a team that all offseason, I just could not find myself buying into. And despite the win over Nebraska on the road, I still am not sure how much I'm buying into Michigan. I'll tell you who I am buying into, though, and that's Justice Haynes. dude is a monster. Wrecked Oklahoma against them, wrecked Nebraska, 17 for 149 and a touchdown, looked great. Bryce Underwood continues to develop, 12 of 22, 105 yards, added 61 and a touchdown on the ground, and I think at least if you're a Michigan fan, you can see signs of improvement. Underwood is getting better. He's learning the college game. I think by the time he's done here at Michigan, they'll be a very good team once again. I'm just not sure this year is their year, especially you look at how stacked the top of the Big Ten is. We'll see what happens later down their schedule, but they have some tough games. In a couple weeks, they head out to Southern Cal to play USC. I think that'll be really telling how good can this defense actually be against a USC offense under Lincoln Riley that's humming right now under Jaden Mayava. They look great. So for Michigan, I think positive signs so far, but I'm still not sure how much I'm actually buying this team at this point, although the trenches are as strong as ever, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They held Nebraska to 43 rushing yards and 1.3 per carry, which that's a great day. And as for Nebraska, you got to figure out the run game because Dylan Raiola needs some help. Raiola was 30 of 41 for 308, 3 touchdowns and a pick. That's more the Dylan Raiola I want to see. He was a gunslinger out there. He looked solid. I think that he was good enough to win this game for Nebraska. The issue is he didn't get a ton of help, either from his run game nor his run defense. And I think that really hurt the Huskers. This team's improving. The program, I think, is getting better under Matt Rule, but still just cannot win these ranked games, cannot win close games. It's more the same for Nebraska. So it feels like the more things change, the more they stay the same in Lincoln right now. Michigan also had 7 sacks of Dylan Raiola. You got to hold up better. If he's having to do everything by himself, especially only through the air, I think Nebraska's really going to struggle to win games, and it's going to continue to be an issue. Neither team could convert on third down in this one. Michigan 4 of 12, Nebraska 2 of 13. You've seen a lot of struggles on offense for the Huskers in the last couple of years, even when Raiola has been more okay. The first half of last year was good, but ever since then, just it feels like if they ever get to third down, they can't convert. It's been a consistent trend, and I would love to see maybe some different approaches to that down because clearly whatever you're doing is not working right now. Nebraska, I still think, like I said, you got some encouraging signs. I think there's still a way to go, and I think you could honestly apply that to both teams. Like I said, not completely sold on Michigan as of yet, but they do get a good win. Their only loss so far this season is to Oklahoma, who I think is a really good team, so we'll see what Michigan can do the rest of the way, but for now, cautiously optimistic, I think, is where I would put my judgment of the Wolverines. Now over into the SEC, it's Missouri hosting South Carolina, number 23 Missouri, and they got it done. Lenore Sellers played, I think, pretty well, 18 of 28, 302, 2 touchdowns. The issue is the South Carolina team rushed for -9 yards, which I don't know how much you know about football. That's not very good. Usually you want a positive number at least, and a triple-digit number, ideally, for both rushing and passing. And South Carolina, man, it's what we talked about all offseason. Is there going to be anyone to help Lenore Sellers? And so far, the answer is no. Anytime that there's been any issue with the rest of the team, they get smacked. They looked outclassed versus Vanderbilt last week. I know Sellers was injured, but regardless, they looked outclassed. And now at Missouri this week, more of the same. As for Missouri, I think this is one of the better running back duos in the country. Ahmad Hardy, 22 for 138 and a touchdown, and then Jamal Roberts, 13 for 76 and a touchdown. They are both playing great so far this year. Hardy was one of the best running backs in the country last year as a true freshman at ULM, and he's really just continued where he left off. He doesn't go down. You have to get at least 3 guys onto him to bring him down. He's incredibly shifty in space. He's just a fun talent to watch run the football. It's making it easy on Bo Perbula, and that's what you have to do, because Perbula, fairly inexperienced as a starter still, but did play well. 16 of 27, 171, a touchdown and a pick, added 72 rushing yards. So he's doing what you need him to do right now, and just let the 2 running backs go to work. They've been great. Hardy has some of the best vision, too, I think, in college football. This entire rushing attack is just on another level right now. And if you want to beat Missouri, you're going to have to shut down the line of scrimmage, because if you don't, they will run all over you with all 3 of their rushing threats, including Perbula. So I think the Tigers are really dangerous right now. I would put them maybe not top 5, just outside of the top 5 in the SEC right now, but they look great. And for South Carolina, you need a consistent defense and you need a run game. If you can't find those 2 things, you can't just say, hey, Lenoris, go get 500 yards every game and we'll win somehow. That works for some teams. I've seen Baylor do that a couple times this season, but not what you can ask of, I think, Lenora Sellers with how good these opposing teams he's going up against are, and it's just a struggle. Jalen Kilgore on the defensive side can't do everything by himself. He's been playing fairly well, but just a lot of struggle for South Carolina so far. It's a lot of star talent with not a lot around them, and that just won't be good enough. And man, Palmetto Bowl is going to be a game, one of the games of all time this year, based on how Clemson and South Carolina have started their seasons compared to their preseason expectations, that's for sure. And speaking of Clemson, the season is over for Clemson. It's honestly, it was over right as it started with the LSU game. That was awful. The offense looked dead in the water. The offense has kind of improved. Like the counting stats look good from this game. Like Klubnik, 37 of 60, 363, 3 touchdowns. Adam Randall, 16 carries, 130. Bryant Wesco Jr., 6 catches, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. The issue is you do it all after doing nothing for a lot of the game and letting Syracuse jump out to a lead. Then you're playing catch up, but you can't do it because you're incredibly talented. On paper, defense is just doing nothing. It's one of the oddest games I've ever watched where a team, each side of the ball, it felt like playing half the game for some reason. They just alternated which drives they were going to try on. It was so odd, but Syracuse completely outclassed Clemson. Fran Brown, I think, is doing a great job up in Syracuse, is one of the coaches of the season for me so far. I think he's doing great. Jonte Cook has been a massive addition in the portal for them. 6 catches, 113. There's a reason this guy was so highly touted. Was it Texas and Washington? I know there's some off-the-field stuff that's happened in the past with Jonte Cook, but he looks incredibly talented. The route running is crisp, is playing well over the top, and I'm just overall impressed with Syracuse so far. Steve Angeli, you hate to see the Achilles tear, was playing great before that happened. It'll be Ricky Collins the rest of the way, was previously at LSU, but transferred out after the arrival of Michael Van Buren to that team. So he's a talented player. Apparently it was a close camp battle between him and Angeli, so I wouldn't expect too much of a drop-off with Collins in the driver's seat for Syracuse, but for Clemson, man. Clemson starting 1-3 for the first time in my lifetime, which is certainly something. They just got it in there by about a month on me there, but it's tough. Dabo Swinney obviously didn't look great after this game. Players having to console him on the sideline. It's bad all around in Clemson right now, and I don't know how it gets better, especially with how on the rise Florida State is. Miami's on the rise. SMU has been playing well, though they haven't really got off to the start that I think a lot of people would have expected from them this season. But the ACC has got some really good teams in it now this year. It's not just Clemson, and they really look like they're starting to struggle. Georgia Tech under Brent Key is really improving too. So if you're Clemson, you need to figure out whatever the issue is and figure it out fast, because you can't keep playing like this and expect to keep competing for conference championships every year. If this version of Clemson shows up to play Miami, they would get beat by 30. It's big time issues in Death Valley Junior. I'll say right now, that's what you're playing like. Now back out to Big 12 land, even though one of these teams is SEC, TCU and SMU, where my favorite quarterback in the country just keeps getting things done. It's Josh Hoover of the Horned Frogs, 22 of 40, 379, 5 touchdowns, did throw a pick, but he is incredible. I absolutely love me some Josh Hoover. There's a reason I had him just outside my Heisman finalist to start the year. I still have him there. He's been incredible. I think if TCU can win the Big 12, he's going to put himself right in that conversation, especially if John Mateer maybe stumbles a little bit. Love Josh Hoover. And then how about Eric McAllister on the outside? This is the Eric McAllister we saw from a lot of last season. 8 catches, 254, 3 touchdowns, just a monster. Was absolutely uncoverable. I know the SMU secondary's been kind of made of Swiss cheese this year, but still, 254 yards in a game as a receiver is unheard of. Great game for Eric McAllister. Trent Battle played fairly well, 7 carries, 60 yards. You like to see at least a little bit of a run game, take some of the stress off of Hoover and the passing game if you have to. Overall, TCU played great. Kevin Jennings struggled in this one, 24 of 38, 290, 3 touchdowns. Was picked off by Jamel Johnson twice. Great game for Johnson. I thought he was very solid. Was all over the field. Played incredibly well for that Horned Frog defense. And Hypno Toad may be back for TCU. They're playing great. I think this offense is doing a very good job of not being as predictable as last year. That's a lot of the reason why they struggled. Josh Hoover was great. Eric McAllister was great, but you knew at the end of the day, all they could do was pass on you. So you kind of commit to the pass, drop back, play that too high shell, and kind of contain them. Whereas this year, they've had the running game. If you run too high shell all day against TCU, they're going to gash you in the trenches up the middle. And so then you bring your safety down in the box. You say, okay, well, we'll go single high. We'll stop your run game. And Josh Hoover goes, haha, you fool, and then throws for 3,000 yards on your team. So it's a real struggle for defenses against TCU right now. I think this is one of the more disrespected teams in the country as of this moment. I know they finally got ranked at like 24 or something, but I think they're fringe top 15. I think they're incredible. I love Josh Hoover, as I've already said. TCU, I think, is going to be a very, very hard team to beat as we continue to go through this season. Horned Frog is going to keep the momentum rolling. Staying in the Big 12, Arizona State kind of got a bounce-back win that they really needed, I think. Walk-off 43-yard field goal by the Eastern Michigan transfer Jesus Gomez, which, after the Arizona State kicking situation last year, I bet they're happy to have that guy on the team. They were holding open tryouts last year for a student body, and now you got a guy drilling from 43 on the road as time expires. You love to see it. This is a great game, incredibly fun. Sam Levitt played well, 22 of 32, 221 touchdowns, 62 rush yards, rushing touchdown. This is more the Sam Levitt you expect to see, close to 300 total yards. The Mississippi State game was bad, just flat out bad. The offense, I think, is improving. You're loving to see them come along a little bit. I think this is another team with a very good run game. Raleek Brown, 21 carries, 80 yards. He's a very talented player that I think has gone a bit under the radar so far, but he's great. Arizona State, when they're at their best, they're forcing teams to come down, try to play that run game, and then you pop it over the top to Jordan Tyson, and he runs by everybody. Tyson had another receiving touchdown in this game, played very well. I think Baylor did a pretty solid job of keeping him hemmed in, especially considering how porous that Baylor defense has been at times this season. They did a decent job slowing down Tyson, kept him under 70 yards. So I think solid day for the Baylor secondary. I think if you would have told Baylor entering this game, you hold Arizona State to 27, they would have said, oh, we probably win this game for sure. But the Arizona State defense showed up. They played incredibly well. Sawyer Robertson, 25 of 39, 250, 3 touchdowns and a pick. The previous 2 games against Power 4 competition this year, Robertson had thrown for 419 and 440. Granted, one of those was an overtime game, but still, those 2 compared to 250, great day from the ASU defense. You'll definitely take that. And as for Baylor as a whole, held to just 357 yards, and their previous low on the season was 468. So you held them under their previous high in yards by over 100. I think that's incredibly impressive for the Arizona State defense. Bryson Washington had a good game, 17 for 111. And then one player on this Baylor team that I think is severely underappreciated is Michael Trigg. I remember watching the Auburn-Baylor game in week 1 and thinking, who is this Michael Trigg guy that we cannot cover at all? So went back, watched some film of the guy. He's a very, very good tight end. He's a versatile weapon, incredibly good over the middle of the field, and he keeps showing it. 5 catches, 71, 2 touchdowns in this game. He is a red zone monster. He is a middle of the field monster, and if you try to play outside, contain these Baylor receivers, Cole Wilson, Kobe Prentice, you try to make them not be able to beat you, Michael Trigg is going to kill you. He's been incredibly good this season, and I think that deserves to have more respect on his name so far this year, as does this entire Baylor offense, to be honest. But still, Arizona State comes out with a win. I was very impressed with their defense. Sam Levitt continues to build momentum, and I think they're well on their way to at least reestablishing themselves towards that top of the Big 12 that we expected them to be in at the start of the year. Now back down to SEC country in the state of Mississippi, or maybe the state of Trinidad Chambliss, because this guy is that dude. Last year was QB1 for Ferris State, and they won 14 games in a row to end the year and won the Division II championship with him as their starter, and now he is going crazy at the D1 level, the FBS level. They beat a solid Tulane team 45-10, made them look lost. Jake Retzlaff only threw for 56 yards in this one. Tulane had 282 total yards, but a lot of it came by running back by committee, a lot of rushing yards from different players. But overall, they just couldn't score. And Ole Miss, meanwhile, said, hold my Chambliss and watch this. They went insane. Trinidad threw for 307, 2 touchdowns, and added 112 on the ground. I know Austin Simmons is out with an ankle injury, but I don't know how you take this. I don't know how you take Trinidad Chambliss off the field right now if you're Lane Kiffin. He has done everything you could have wanted and more. He looks more dynamic than Austin Simmons. He is just a masterful dual threat for the Rebels so far this year. I just don't know how you take him off the field. I don't see how you can take a quarterback that has looked like one of the top quarterbacks in the country in limited time and say, yeah, you can go back to the bench now. I just don't think you can afford to, especially with how open the SEC is at the top this year compared to previous years. I think you just got to rock with Chambliss, in my opinion. But as far as the rest of the team, Kawan Lacey was solid, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. I was very impressed with Deuce Alexander, 4 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. He's getting such a good feel for defenses. This guy is making things happen, and some great throws from Chambliss, too. I think overall this Ole Miss offense looks much improved to me. I know that might sound odd considering how good they were last year with Jackson Dart, but this feels like it has more staying power with this group. It feels more solid, a little bit less gimmicky. I like this Ole Miss team a lot more than I liked last year's Ole Miss team, and I would not be surprised if they're an SEC contender come the end of the year, especially after this drubbing of Tulane 45-10. So we'll see what happens when Austin Simmons is healthy once again, once the ankle is healed up. But again, I don't know how you take Chambliss off the field. Another SEC game here, Arkansas and Memphis, and check on your local Arkansas fan because it's been a rough 2 weeks. Against Ole Miss, they had the ball in Ole Miss territory, could have kicked a field goal to win it, and they fumbled the ball, give the game away. Then against Memphis, we're down 1 in Memphis territory, just needed a field goal to win it, and they fumbled the ball and gave the game away. Again, it's been a real pain fest for the Hogs the last 2 weeks. Taylon Green was not great. 18 of 34 for 325, I know looks good, but did throw 2 picks, had a touchdown. I think you need more against Memphis. You need this guy to be bulletproof at this point if you want to win these type of games, and he just isn't quite there yet. I know it seems like it's asking a lot of a guy, but this defense just isn't good. And if you're going to have a defense that's going to give up more than 30 a game, you need to have a quarterback that isn't making these mistakes, and it's still too many of the just kind of crazy mistakes from Taylon Green, I think. Mike Washington Jr., I was very impressed with, 70 yards, a touchdown. Rohan Jones was a huge play threat in this game. 2 catches, 102 yards, and the receiving touchdown, and then had a rushing touchdown as well, 5-yard rushing touchdown. I was impressed with him, and the defense was able to get to Brendan Lewis 3 times, get 3 sacks. The issue was they let Brendan Lewis run wild all over them. Lewis threw for 199, touchdown, 1 pick, and then rushed for 103 and 2 touchdowns. Sutton Smith carried the ball 12 times for 147 and a touchdown. And then Cortez Bram Jr. had 7 catches for 102 and a touchdown. The Memphis offense did anything they wanted to against this Arkansas defense. And if you're Arkansas and you see SEC play looming, some of the teams you're going to have to go up against in conference and their attacks, if you're giving up this to Memphis, not to say Memphis is bad by any means, because I think they're a fringe top 25 team at this point in the year, but still, you need to improve on the defensive side of the ball and quick. As for Memphis in the group of 5 race now, I'd say they control their own destiny because they host both USF and Tulane, I think 2 of the biggest threats. So if they can take care of business in those games, the Tigers should have a spot in the college football playoff this season, which they feel is like a group of 5 mainstay every year, and they're back again, this time with the Nevada transfer, Brendan Lewis. So definitely encouraging for Memphis. Great win over Arkansas, and they're now 4-0 in their last 4 games against SEC opponents, which I think is a pretty cool fact for them as well. Now, finally, to round out the recap video here, USC and Michigan State in the battle of 2 very improved quarterbacks this year. And Jaden Mayava really stood out to me. 20 of 26, 234, 3 touchdowns. Last year, the film on this guy, there were some horrible interceptions. Just what are you doing? Brain dead decisions. The Notre Dame game was especially bad down the stretch. This year, he looks calmer, more composed, decisive. Lincoln Riley QB development machine go burr. I don't know what else to tell you. Mayava looks great, and the USC run game is also very good. I think that's huge for this team. If they can have a multi-dimensional offense and not just say, hey, Jaden, go do everything yourself, this is going to be a dangerous team. Wayman Jordan had 18 carries for 157. Eli Sanders, 16 carries for 90 yards. Dynamic offense from the Trojans in this game, and I was incredibly impressed. The defense was good enough You give up 31, that's not ideal, but you scored 45, so you did enough to win. Mekhi Lemon was also great, 127 yards, had a huge touchdown catch. As for Michigan State, I think you're encouraged with this from Aiden Childs. 12 of 21, 212, 3 touchdowns. Not lighting the world on fire, but hey, it's fine. And I think you take fine after some of the streakiness of last year. If these are what the lows are going to look like for Aiden Childs this season, I think you take it 10 times out of 10 if you're a Spartans fan. Omari Kelly continues his great start of the year. 6 catches, 133 yards, and a touchdown. He was great. Michigan State, I think, could be a sneaky team in some games this season. They're going to hang around in some of these games. I don't think they're going to upset anyone big, but they're going to hang around if Aiden Childs can keep at this level of play. So watch out for Michigan State. Maybe we know what Jonathan Smith can do in building a program. We saw what he did at Oregon State. So I think he has Michigan State at least on their way. And then for USC, this is a team that I think is going to be very fun to watch down the stretch. This is the first time I've looked at a USC team since Lincoln Riley has been there and been kind of reminded of the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma heyday. This team has that vibe of, we may allow 40 points a game, but we're going to score 45, and it's going to be enough to win. It kind of feels like that right now. The offense is finally more than just the passing attack. They have the run game to go with it. I'm excited to see what they do the rest of the year. It's going to be a fun contrast of styles with some of these other Big Ten teams. They host Michigan in a couple weeks. That'll be an intriguing game. But for now, I'm happy with what I see from USC. I think they're playing good footballs. But that is the Week 4 wrap-up. I think we had a lot of great games this week. Later in the week, I'm going to have a video out for my top 25 after the first 4 games of the year, kind of a season update, see where we're at for that. And then obviously Week 5 preview will be coming down the pipe later. But thank you for tuning in to the video. If you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe if you are enjoying the content. I know that there's a lot of football content out there, especially college football. So if you're choosing to watch this and enjoy it, I do really appreciate that. Maybe tell a couple friends. That'd be cool too. But I appreciate y'all tuning in the video, and I will see y'all next time.